Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of Babergh District Council Cabinet. I'm Councillor John Ward, Leader of Babergh District Council, and I'll be chairing this meeting. May I first of all remind you of some domestic arrangements. Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use, that you do not interrupt other speakers, that if you are attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Please ensure your mobile phones are on silent or switched off. Excuse me, silent. And additionally, we'll be using e-voting for this meeting on the modern.gov app. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you'll be deemed by the Council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you are also consenting to being recorded by the Council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. If you are intending to do so, please could you inform the committee clerk. Can I move to the agenda, please? Item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Busby.
Thank you. Item 2, to receive declarations of pecuniary, other registrable or non-registrable interest by members. Are there any to declare? Nope. Thank you. Item 3, paper BCA 25-1 to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of May. So if I just go through that, so if we look at the first page, which is page 5 of your agenda pack, page 6, page 7, page 8, and lastly page 9. So are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? Nothing? So in which case may I have a proposer, please? Councillor Laura Smith. And a seconder, please, and that's Councillor Saul. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That is 7 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Item 4, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Item 5, questions by councillors.
None received, Chair.
And item 6, matters referred by the Overview and Scrutiny or Joint Audit and Standards Committees.
There are no matters referred, Chair.
Thank you. Item 7, forthcoming decisions list. Are there any comments from anyone? Okay, thank you. So therefore, the forthcoming decisions list has been noted. Actually, before I go on, I forgot to say, welcome to the Cabinet meeting to Councillor Wyman, who has joined me in my portfolio as lead member covering assets and investments. Sorry about not remembering that at the start of the meeting.
I should never debate myself, Chair.
Item 8. Paper BCA 25-2, Community Infrastructure Levy, the SIL Expenditure Programme for June 2025. I'll now invite the Cabinet Member for Heritage Planning and Infrastructure to introduce the report. Councillor Sally Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just move up because my... So yes, this is the Babergh SIL Expenditure Programme, June 2025. It's your normal reports, which contain a recommendation at paragraph 3.1 to support 3 different infrastructure projects with district SIL monies. So there's one for green energy improvements at Shimpling Village Hall for solar panels on the roof, one for installation of an upgraded heating system for Friars Hall, including the kitchen, toilet and meeting rooms, using a domestic-sized gas combi boiler and installing new radiators. And this has been approved for £9,999. And the third one is, so those two projects are to be noted because they've already been decided under delegated powers. The third SIL bid is for Cabinet to decide itself, and this is a proposal by Brantham Village Hall Management Committee. The proposed works are to upgrade the toilets at Brantham Village Hall. The SIL bid application is for £19,462.50, with a total eligible project cost of £25,950. The project will benefit the community by improving a local space that is attractive to use and will ensure its longevity going forward. So I'm asking the Cabinet to note and endorse the SIL Expenditure programme for June, and that's set out in more detail in Appendix A. It's what you've also got in Appendix A is a list of approved SIL bids from rounds 1 to 14 together as a reference point. So I just asked them to follow the recommendation in 3.1.
Thank you, Councillor. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor McCraw. Members of the Cabinet, does anyone have any questions on any of these bids? Councillor Saw.
Yes, as regards Friars Hall, I think this has been raised before, but why is it that we are looking at upgrading a heating system which is gas? Is there a particular issue with this particular property?
Yes, in fact, I did ask that question myself. So Christine, the officer, has given me more details. The form of heating chosen by the SIL bidder was informed by recommendations from an engineer, and it related to the form of heating that they wanted to install in the adjoining Joy Abbot Hall, which is a former church. So this heating represents phase 2 of the works, and they've stated in the technical assessment, and I'm quoting, the new system proposed uses a gas combi boiler attached to an external wall adjacent to an area of open land, which will enable at a later date change to an alternative method of heating using one of the new methods of heating such as hydrogen or other gas, ground or air source heat pump or solar sources or mains electricity, without significant alteration to internal radiators or plumbing. So I did ask the question because I wasn't particularly happy about SIL funding going on a gas boiler. However, this looks to be a short-term provision and it is affected by the adjoining Joy Abbot Hall. I don't know if, Christine, you've got anything to add to that?
I haven't really got anything further to add to that. There was an engineer's report. This was the result of looking at all the forms of heating that they could bring in. What you've got is a former church which has really old heating, and they haven't decided totally how to heat that, but it will be with a different form of heating. And then you've got a very different building adjacent to it, which is the Hive building, and they didn't have any heating over the winter at all. And they wanted to put in a form of heating which would heat their Hive building, but then play into their second phase of works. In future, I think what we will do is have a much more strident conversation about this going forward. I can only offer that in the circumstances, but we did take on board the recommendation of the engineer. And I think the fact that you've got a former church in one sense and then attached to it a sort of a single-storey building with different proportions, different heating requirements, it had to be something that would work together. That's all I can offer, really.
Thank you.
Any other questions, anyone? Councillor Wyman, do you have any questions? No. Okay then, if there are no further questions, we'll move into debate. So does anyone wish to start the debate? Councillor McCraw, I was waiting for you. After all, there is an item in Brampton.
And Chair, it is actually the only item we have to specifically vote on, and not to comment on it in my own ward would seem wrong. And actually, all I can tell you is that this is going to make a huge difference to the users of the village hall who've been looking and hoping for this for some time. The total finance has always been too much for the parish council to undertake under its own, and of course we've taken a lot of development in the village without necessarily receiving direct benefits. In this case, I think the users will be much relieved.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Anyone else wish to contribute? So in which case, I guess we move to the vote. Everyone happy to move to the vote? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That's 7 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item is item 9, paper BCA 25-3, General Fund Financial Monitoring, 2024 to 25 Outturn. And I'll introduce the report as a Cabinet Member for Finance. So I'd like to introduce report BCA 25-3 to Cabinet, the General Fund Outturn for 2024 to 25. This covers the full year performance against budget for the Council's revenue, capital programme and reserves. There is a forecast deficit of just over £1 million, which it is proposed will be funded from the Financial Resilience Reserve. You will remember we were budgeting a surplus of £132,000 in February 2024, so this deficit is an adverse variance of £1.15 million. Although a large amount, it is a slight improvement on the Q3 figure, an improvement of £113,000. Now, a summary of the outturn position is provided on pages 77 and 78, and this summarises the variances for the service costs, income and funding. And page 77 shows the net cost of services as before, along with explanations for the capital financing, investment income and funding variances. And on page 78, we've also added a new table showing the service costs, grants, income and use of reserves that have contributed to the net cost. And this also shows the service headings used in the budget report. Detailed explanations for the variance for each service are provided on pages 79 to 81. So in summary, there's currently a net expenditure overspend of £561,000, which rises to a net cost of service of just over £1 million when financing costs and investment income movements are taken into account. The vacancy management factor and the savings programme have been accounted for in the budget as central budget items held by corporate resources. The savings against these are recognised in the net expenditure for individual services, which is why the full year forecast against the central items is zero. We are on course to achieve the savings we included in the budget, including an increased vacancy management factor of 7.76% due to a £319,000 underspend on salaries. And the savings programme is itemised on page 82. The two main things that have contributed to the shortfall against budget are firstly the items listed against strategic property on page 81, then the costs incurred due to the closure of the Kingfisher Leisure Centre from August last year to February. And these are the two largest items on those pages. And looking at funding, there is a small increase in business rates compared with budget and a reduced surplus in the collection fund. The business rates levy was larger than expected, but our income from renewables is also up due to the Brook Farm energy site coming onto the valuation list and the charge for this being backdated. The earmarked reserves are shown on page 83, and after all in-year movements, including funding the £1 million budget deficit, the balance is £9.9 million. The forecast deficit position represents 49% of the Financial Resilience Reserve, which was established to help finance any future year's budget gaps. The capital programme is shown on pages 84 to 87, with the financing on page 88. The outturn is £8.4 million, which is an underspend of £5.2 million on the budget, The main reasons for this are carry forwards for the following items. There's an underspend on the Disabled Facilities Grant. The replacement refuse freighters will now be purchased in the current year, and similarly for replacement public realm vehicles. Roof works to the Kingfisher Leisure Centre are now extending into the current year, and the Bellevue Park Cafe and toilets are now being done in the current year. Planned maintenance works to void units in Boreham Gate and Navigation House have been carried forward, and also the main reason for the overall underspend is the reduction in Babergh growth capital loans due to schemes not now going ahead. I just want to draw your attention to the table paper, which contains a minor commentary update for the Babergh growth item at the top of page 86. It should now read, adjustment to profile of drawdown being carried forward into 2025 to 26. And lastly, the prudential indicators at the end of quarter 4 are in Appendix B. So I'd now like to propose the recommendations in section 3 of the main report, that the General Fund 2024 to 25 deficit of £1 million be noted, and to fund this deficit for the financial year from the Financial Resilience Reserve, and finally to approve the carry forward in the capital programme of £3.5 million. Now we have Melissa and Sean here to answer any questions that I can't answer, but I'd like to thank them all, both of them and also David, for putting, who's not here today, for putting together this outturn for what was a challenging financial year. So may I have a seconder, please? Councillor Derek Davis. Questions from members? Anyone got any questions? No? No questions at all? Okay. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the reserves, I understand the need to use the reserves to plug the gap. Is the balance of the remaining earmarked reserves enough?
Going forward, if you'll remember, cast your mind back to February, we showed the latest medium-term financial plan and forecast, and no, the reserves will not last for many years, and we do have a significant challenge ahead, particularly in the setting the budget for the next financial year, 26 to 27, and a lot of work is going to be done to try to find additional savings and income in order to do that, so that we don't deplete our reserves to zero, because we cannot do that. We do need to hold on to some reserves going forward into the future. But I think that's, Melissa, that's probably a fair comment. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Davis, Sally Davis.
I'm looking at page 76.10. I was just wondering whether somebody could explain the business rates from renewables, because that's something I hadn't considered before. So we actually brought in a large sum on business rates. Is this likely to be a more substantial form of income for us in the future because of all the renewables that are coming our way?
I will ask Melissa or Sean to pick up on that, but certainly, as with all forecasts on business rates, it really depends on what's going to happen going forward with the reset on business rates. But if Melissa, would you like to pick up on that?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yes, Councillor Ward has said the government are consulting on the future of business rates. At the moment, as it stands, for any businesses that have renewable energy as their category, we get to keep 100% of that business rates income. That was one of the questions in the consultation as to whether we would like them to continue with that 100% that we get to keep, and obviously we said yes. So we'll wait and see what comes back when they've reviewed all the responses.
Because that's unusual to get 100% business rates, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, yeah. It's always been the case for renewable energy that we get to keep it. That's one of the criteria.
I think the monitoring officer wants to say a few words as well from a planning perspective.
Just thank you, Chair. Just wanted to advise, obviously you only get business rates where you have new renewable developments, so it does rather depend on either what your own planning committee or appeal inspectors determine in terms of applications that we've seen. If no applications come forward, then you'll get no new renewable sites, so you won't get business rates for them. If lots get approved either by this council or by appeal inspectors, then in due course when they come online, then you will get the business rates associated with them. To remind councillors, financial benefits are not a material consideration that anybody should be taking into account when they are determining those planning applications. But there is an inevitable follow-on, I suppose.
Thank you. Any other questions? In which case, Councillor McCraw, you got a question? If not, we'll move into debate. Anyone like to comment? Councillor Saw, and then Councillor Derek Davis.
Obviously, there is a consultation on resetting business rate, and I note that the government had said in that consultation document that it aims to ensure funding is targeted where it is needed most and restoring the balance between aligning funding with need and rewarding business growth. It would appear to me that this is our old favourite, we are not deprived enough. And consequently, it doesn't leave me with very much confidence that the business rate resetting will be in our favour. And obviously, that gives us a real challenge when it comes to managing our finances going ahead. And that's without tomorrow's spending review, which I think we all look forward to with some trepidation. So, you know, if business rates were reset so that we would get more of the money rather than giving it to county and to the government, that would be a good thing. But it appears to me that, again, when we look at for example, the Rural Services Delivery Grant that's also been taken away from us, that the government does not necessarily see rural areas as being either a priority or deserving of finance, which I think is going to leave them in a very difficult situation if more rural councils have to go to 114. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Derek Davis.
Yeah, thank you. I think the people responsible for the budget, this budget, putting it together, have done a remarkable job. We know how difficult it is and has been for many years. But looking forward, there's glimpses of optimism. I completely agree with Councillor Saw that the government does need to do more to support local democracy in many ways, especially on the financial side. But I think the team have done well, and you know, looking back over the time, 50% of the staff costs, and we've seen the increases that, you know, we can't control on that. That's set independently, but our staff deserve every single penny of that. And I don't think we would, if we were to have a Doge-like influenced by somebody, they wouldn't find anything. We've cut everything to the bone that we need to do, and the officers need to be congratulated on doing that, and as does the portfolio holders. So this is why I'm supporting this. It's not great. We know that we've got difficult times ahead, but we're doing the best we can with what we've got, and utilising every penny that we can. And also, in terms of the economic growth, you know, we do have things that are coming forward that will help our businesses and also support our income in a number of different ways, and they'll become apparent over the next few months, if not over the next year. So that's why I'm more than happy to support this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sally Davis.
Yeah, I'd echo what Councillor Davis has just said. I also would point out that anybody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we have an overspend of 4%, if that's correct, but we've got a net underspend on salaries of 7.76%. So we often get from opposition members the comment that we've got too many people and we're overstaffed and that sort of thing. But we're not. The reason for this overspend seems to me that there are higher maintenance costs on our property and the situation at Kingfisher Leisure Centre. So again, some of which was unforeseen, and again, the cuts that have been made and the way we are bringing in more income and cutting our expenditure, it is not that we are overspending on salaries, far from it.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? Okay, just to quickly sum up, I totally agree with what's been said so far. We are highly unlikely to be a beneficiary from the spending review, whether it's business rates or anything else. And the idea that some new political thinking can come in to councils, not specifically us, but anywhere else, and suddenly find masses of wastage and scope for savings is quite laughable, because over the years, certainly over the past 10 or 15 years, councils have had to become more and more efficient, and by and large are very efficient now. So there's precious little else that can be squeezed. We're going to have to do work, as I said, for the forthcoming budget for next year, and look for savings, and those savings may well have to come from a reduction in service delivery, because efficiencies are going to be very hard to find, any further efficiencies over and above what we've already made. But apart from savings, the other thing I did say was additional income, and we really will have to look at where we can squeeze additional income from services, where we can charge, put on our own charges, particularly the discretionary services that we provide. So it's just a fact of life, unfortunately. But we will get there. We've been doing a lot of good work. The team has been working really hard, and will continue to do so. So having said that, I think I'll now move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That is 7 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Next is item 10, paper BCA 25 the housing revenue account, quarter 4 outturn for 2024 to 25. And I'm going to again introduce that. So I'm pleased to introduce report BCA 24 to Cabinet, the HRA outturn for 2024 to 25. This covers the full year performance against budget for the Council's housing revenue account, revenue capital programme and reserves. And there is some good news here. The forecast outturn deficit is now only £47,000 against a forecast deficit of £10.1 million in the budget, although that had reduced by quarter 3 to 6.2 million. But, and you remember that a large part of that was due to a proposed repayment of a £6 million loan. However, we'll now be paying this with the Council's cash through internal borrowing from the General Fund rather than through the HRA's revenue account. And this will have a positive impact on the business plan, which will now be revised. So it does mean that we're now able to make a revenue contribution to capital of £1 million, and you will also remember that a large budgeted contribution of about £5.5 million was removed at quarter 2. A summary of the HRA outturn is provided on page 101. An explanation for the variances from budget are also provided there as well. There is a small increase in income compared with budget, but expenditure is significantly more than budget, resulting in an operational surplus of just under £3.5 million, lower than budget, but an improvement compared with quarter 3. As the notes say, there are increased management and service costs and a large overspend on routine and planned maintenance. Depreciation charges, however, are significantly favourable to budget due to a change to the useful life of the assets following the latest review. Section 4.3 of the main report discusses the financial weaknesses in the HRA, indeed those facing HRAs across the country, and which have been highlighted in 2 national reports, of which one Babergh was a co-signatory. And the financial positions of HRAs makes it difficult to invest adequately in maintaining, repairing and improving properties, let alone consider new additions to the housing stock. However, we do now have a sustainable business plan that will enable us to carry out the improvements our stock needs. The capital programme is shown on pages 102 to 104, and the spend of £7.5 million is 9.9 million under budget due to some significant underspends as shown in the table. We're proposing to carry forward £9.4 million to the current year. The reserves are shown on page 105, and the balance of £15.6 million is greater than the Q3 forecast, as we now won't need to use £6 million to pay off the loan. So I'd like to propose the recommendation in section 3 of the main report that 24 to 25 housing revenue account deficit of £47,000 be funded from strategic reserves, to improve the revenue contribution to capital of £1 million, to improve the carry forwards of £9.4 million into the 2025 to 26 capital programme, and to note the revised treatment of the £6 million loan repayment through internal borrowing rather than through the revenue account. And we've got Melissa and Jenny here to answer any questions I can't. And again, I'd like to thank them and David for putting together this outturn. Thank you. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Saul. And questions, members of the Cabinet? Anyone got any questions? Councillor Sally Davis.
Yeah, I just on page 101 there is mention of 141,000 in compensation payments. Could somebody just explain to me what they are, please?
Thank you for the question. So the compensation payments relate to disrepair claims and compensation for complaints. We've now got a disrepair surveyor, and that is now going in the correct direction.
Thank you, Deborah. Any other questions? Shall we move to debate then? Does anyone wish to say anything? No? Councillor Saul? Go on.
Well, in actual fact, I think this is a very encouraging set of results and testimony to all the work has been done to transform the performance of our housing department. We always say that there is, more to do, but when I look at these figures, I think it's an outstanding performance given where we were in previous years under other administrations. And the only thing we've completed the stock condition survey now, so I guess we would hope that we would be able to complete the repairs and maintenance that stock condition survey has outlined. I'm also glad that we got the additional funding from government for wave 3 of social decarbonisation. I guess the only thing that I would be slightly disappointed about is that it wasn't more, because it seems a large sum of money, but not when you look at it across our whole estate. But at least our older houses and the houses which are still in the villages using oil will benefit from this funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? Councillor Sally Davis.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I'm impressed, and I'm really glad that we are continuing to lobby. I can see that we were signatories to a report securing the future of council housing, and that we continue to lobby for better debt settlement and rent policy, because it has put us in a precarious position, and there has to be fundamental changes if we're going to be put on a secure footing, and we're not alone in that. And I'm just really impressed and glad that we are continuing to lobby as set out in the report, and I hope we continue to do so.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, no further comments in debate, then I want to say that I too think that what we have here is a good position for our HRA. We've spent a lot of time and effort restructuring the way we provide services to our tenants. And we also now have a sustainable business plan going forward, which will allow us to carry out all of the repairs and maintenance and energy efficiency improvements we need to make. The only thing that I think that is still going to be a challenge, and we have said this in past meetings in respect to the business plan, is our ability, or rather lack of ability, in being able to increase our stock in terms of building or buying or acquiring somehow additional housing. Something we really need to do, but without government funding, government support, it's going to be very difficult for us. Indeed, not just us, other councils, housing associations are all struggling to do this. Yet the government keeps saying that they have this, not just an increase in overall housing, but aspirations to increase social and affordable housing. Well, without some form of financial help, we're not going to be able to do that. And the only way to deliver social and affordable housing is through councils and housing associations. So, having said that, I think we'll move to vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That is 7 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Item 11, paper BCA 25-5, quarter 4, the 2024-25 Babergh Performance Report. I'll now invite the Cabinet Member for Performance and Resilience to introduce the report. Councillor McCraw.
Thank you, Chair. I can't tell you how pleased I am to be able to introduce the quarter 4 report for Babergh's performance in 24-25 BCA 25-5. The reason being, not only do I think this is a very well presented report, it has been developed over the course of the last year. I think we're achieving a degree of transparency and understanding in providing the statistics that actually allow us to measure and to make it understandable. And secondly, some of the figures are really good. And I think that's a tribute to all the portfolios, each in their own sphere, have come up and have done the work to produce these figures. I've got extensive notes, as you might not be surprised to hear, and all I've got to do is find them. So, reporting format, we've changed steadily over the year, and I think we've refined it to a point where I'm almost 99% we're sure are there, but we can always improve, and we will look to do so. We've added, because this makes up, this quarter 4 report makes up a sort of end-of-year report. To that end, we've added a 5th column of figures so that you can compare quarter 4 this year with quarter 4 last year. And that's something I think we might continue doing so that you always got a year-on-year figure as opposed to a quarter-on-quarter figure. Just go back, the first column, the last column, and you'll be able to make a direct comparison. We've also, because this is the end of the year, we've added a quarter 4 appendix. And that appendix report looks at some case studies and stories which are organised around the 3 priorities of the plan for Babergh, plus our approach. And there's an opportunity to think about how useful this type of reporting is going to be going forward. I personally believe an end-of-year approach is a sensible one. But I think there's benefits to be had from these sort of case studies. We added in some links, which you might find. If I just go to some performance highlights from the report before I get to the general content of the report, We have 1 point amongst 92 that we report upon at red, which is obviously an area of concern. We have 11 points at amber, 31 points of green, and I'm not sure where the balance lie, somewhere indeterminate in the middle. But broadly speaking, the reds, we've dropped, for example, from 4 to 8 red KPIs, key performance indicators, to between 1 and 2 during 2025. One example, 100% of our planning applications are decided upon on time. I'm going to go back to the report now, actually the one you have in front of you, in the format you've become accustomed to. In every portfolio or area, you have a list of the key performance indicators where they lie at red, amber or green. And as I go through, I think the best way I've always done this is to start with my own portfolio and then allow other cabinet members to present their interpretation and their work on their portfolios. So if I look at the average number of calls per day, you can see that it's consistently about 500 calls per day, and I think that's for both councils, but even so, it is a lot of phone calls. We've looked at the average time taken to answer calls over many years. We have a target of 105 seconds. I'm very pleased to say that in 24-25, we averaged 1 minute, 1 second throughout the year as an average. That is the best annual average we've ever achieved. And there have been moments where we've been down to just over 30 seconds for a call to be answered. The percentage of calls abandoned annually is 7% and has dropped as low as 4% and has only once risen to the target of 10% during the year. Digital transactions, they go up and down, but increasingly we are seeing a steady uptake of digital transactions, and we are designed specifically in the last year or 2 years to make our digital systems easier to use and easier to understand. And I hope to be announcing some changes to digital transaction help for councillors as well. Stage 1 complaints, it's a high level, but of course the point is we actually welcome those complaints, because if nobody tells us what's happening, how do we know how to fix it? And we are achieving that. The website, weirdly, the website is getting, it would seem to me, possibly what looks like fewer visits. I don't think that is the case, but I do know that everybody I've spoken to that's used the website has been very happy with it. So what I'd like to do now is transfer, pass the buck if you like, to my cabinet colleagues if they have any points they'd like to make. I refer them specifically to that appendix which may contain specific case studies that relate to their portfolios. So I leave it open to other members.
Thank you, Councillor. May I have a seconder for this? Councillor Saw. And firstly, does anyone wish to add anything from their portfolio before we move into questions and debates? Councillor Derek Davis, and then Councillor Saw.
It won't be a question, it will be a statement, is that okay?
Yeah, okay.
I think that Councillor McCall is absolutely right about the figures and how good they are. The fourth quarter performance obviously basically recognises all the good work that's been done over the year. And as a council, we're no different to anyone else. We get a kick in, you get people complaining. But I think a lot of these figures show just what we are achieving for our residents and for our businesses. And if I just look at my portfolio, and I'm going to link it with the communities team because we work closely together, but look at the amount of grants and funding that has been spent and used by various people. Now that wouldn't happen without the work of the teams, both the economic team and with the communities team, and indeed we've seen it with SIL in planning, so that comes into it. But it's for everybody, and it could be as little as we've saw from Sudbury Bowls Club to Shotley Chess Club, or the Wi-Fi in the village hall, in the village halls across the district. It's vital for those little communities, and that's the work that we can do at a granular level. Now, the stats say one thing, but the tangible difference, the benefits to our residents are highlighted in this report. You know, if people wanted to actually have a look at it, it's a good news story, and we should be proud of what we've done. It's certainly in our portfolios, and I'm sure other portfolio holders will think the same. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Saw.
Yes, I'd just like to draw attention to two items relating to our performance in recycling and waste. Our curbside collection success rate, 99.95%. And also the amount of black bin waste we are collecting. Now, obviously, next year we will be moving to weekly food waste collections and also moving to a different recycling regime where I confidently expect the amount of black bin waste to reduce and the amount of recycling to increase. The one thing I think we have to be very conscious of is we have an excellent waste and recycling service, and we need to be very sure that as we introduce new services that this level of performance continues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sally Davis.
Yes, in my heritage planning and infrastructure portfolio, the long-awaited local listed building consent order on aiming to enable the owners of listed buildings to put in new windows easily is now in its final consultation until the 16th of July, and I'm hoping we can get adoption after we have considered the results of that consultation and shortly afterwards. The local development order is still languishing with Heritage England. So that's one of the things that we're hoping to bring to fruition soon. Looking at this report, I will refer again to the tangible benefits of community infrastructure levy, which is money collected from developers when they carry out development in an area. We continue to collect and distribute district community infrastructure levy, and I'm really encouraged by the number of village halls who are putting solar panels on their roofs, such as Glemsford. We have a number of those, and I've visited a couple recently of other SIL projects, Long Melford play area, which was just outstanding, and I was desperate to go on the tyre swing, but I thought I'd get told off, so I didn't. And also, I also visited Hartest Institute, where they have made energy efficiency. They've used energy efficiency measures in a building that is a very beautiful building. It's not listed, but it can be shown how you can make a building more energy efficient without compromising its beauty and its value. And thirdly, in my portfolio, just how busy we are with neighbourhood plans. Hadley and Brettonham adopted theirs in February 2025, and we have a number coming through. We're very busy because we are encouraging our communities to make neighbourhood plans. So we've been busy, and there's a lot of good things happening.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Two of my colleagues have touched on grants, and I wanted to draw attention to the locality awards, the so-called light touch grants, but it shows in the report that 98% of the awards have been allocated by Q4 by the councillors, and Councillor Davis said how important that is. It's light touch, it's only £2,000 per councillor, but it really makes a difference in the community. And the other 2% will be allocated, the money will all get used. But compared to last year, that was a useful comparison to see that that's an improvement on last year.
Yes, it is.
And the other point to note was the Safer Streets programme, which is outside funded, has been 100% delivered. So that's a very satisfying piece of work that's been delivered by the community, by the community safety team.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, the Council of Locality funding, it's, as you say, it's only a small amount, £2,000, but once you've got 4 or 5 lots of £400 or £500, it's surprising how much of a difference it can make to projects in different villages. I've found it been very welcome in my patch, just to do the small little things or to help contribute to small little things. It's been very useful for our communities. Councillor McCraw.
Sorry to come in again, but in the absence of Councillor Carter, who's been handling the housing portfolio for the last year, I think I'd like to draw attention to the improvement in housing figures, particularly those relating to the overall satisfaction of our tenants. And again, we can see the steady improvement of levels both here and at Mid-Suffolk. I'd like to pay tribute to the housing team, who I know have been working on this, and actually members of the trades teams and the entire crew across the board. The housing figures are showing that steady improvement. We're not there, we're not to target yet, but my goodness, we're making steps in those directions, and we'd be remiss not to mention that. And finally, I should pay tribute to my own team, because this has been a team effort and everything, but I'd like to pay particular tribute to Claire Reid, who has done a lot of work on the presentation, and I think the presentation is what makes this report work so well. Lots of others were obviously involved, but I think it's actually a rather nice design, and information and design go well together. Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Helen Davis.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to highlight a couple of points on the climate change biodiversity piece. We have talked about the local nature recovery strategy, and that is completing its public consultation actually tomorrow. So if you haven't commented, you need to get your comments in pretty fast. But once this is done, then this will be such a useful tool for planners and developers to utilise when they are working on their biodiversity net gain plans. There'll be hard and fast evidence there as to whether or not what they're proposing will be a good thing. With respect to the nature reserves, I know we've only done one at Sproughton, and I actually went round that the other day. It took an hour and a half to go round, and it was lovely. We went onto the little Chantry Cut Island, and it was like you were nowhere near the A14 or any housing. It was really quiet and peaceful. And Ipswich Borough Council are working quite hard on the nature reserve to get that into a good state, and I rather suspect we'll be coming forward for SIL funding at some point. So I'll just highlight that to my colleague, Sally. The other piece that I haven't mentioned, I don't think so far, is that we are beginning to trial an effort with a local college for their ecology and environmental science students to survey Babergh-owned land with a view to them practicing sampling techniques and looking at what is actually on the site in question. And it's a win-win for us. We don't have the bandwidth to keep track of how our sort of biodiverse sites are improving, but with the aid of local students, we hope to be able to gather a body of data over time that would show what we hope would be good improvement. Now, if this trial works, then we would hope to roll it out further across Babergh. And the other thing is we have had our first meeting of the Biodiversity Action Group, and we're going to be working on a strategy. We should have a workshop at the end of June to go through this and figure out what we can and can't do. Thanks.
Thank you. Right. Does anyone have any questions on this report? Anything they'd like to ask? Councillor Sally Davis.
Yeah, I just wanted to look at the appendix on page 136, the information about the joint local plan. I just wanted to check whether that was out of date or not, because it is for the year 24 to 25, and it references the old situation with the joint local plan rather than the decision taken at the end of last year, beginning of this year. to review our joint local plan. Is that for Joe? Yeah.
I'm not sure I can answer that
yeah.
directly. Joe, do you have any concept of, is that just a little bit of an outdated section?
Yes, well, I'll have to take that back to the team just to go and see what the update is, but possibly it slipped through the net in terms of being correct at the time of publication.
Nobody's perfect.
Any other questions? Does anyone wish to contribute anything more to debate over and above what they've said as their parts of the report? Okay. The only thing I want to say, I'm very pleased with the appendix. It's a useful addition, and there's some really interesting information in there. The other thing that I was very gratified to see is our high street vacancy rates in Sudbury and Hadley at 7%. They are incredibly low. They're lower than regional, a long way lower than regional and national averages. It just goes to show that both of our market towns are thriving, which is contrary to what you might read in the ill-informed comments on social media saying that they're dying. They're definitely not dying. Yes, it's still a struggle for high streets for high street businesses to make a decent living, but nonetheless, our towns are proving that it can be done, and they are doing it. There's a variety of shops in both towns, and we must keep up the message that our towns are thriving and that they're great places to come and visit. So with that, I'll move to the vote, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That is 7 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Moving on to the last item now. That's item 12, paper BCA 25-6, to confirm the confidential minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of May 2025. So please note, if there are any points regarding the accuracy of the confidential minutes, the meeting will be required to go into closed session. So firstly, are there any points regarding the accuracy of these minutes? No? In which case then, may I have a proposer, please? Councillor Smith, and a seconder, Councillor Derek Davis. Okay, we'll now conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That is 7 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Right, members of the Cabinet, that brings us to the close of today's meeting. Thank you. The date and time of the next meeting is Tuesday, 8th of July at 4 p.m. Thank you, everyone.